The key card should have opened silence, but instead it opened voices. Soft laughter drifted through the door of room 1412. And Daniel Harper stopped so suddenly that his suitcase rolled into his heel. After a 10-hour flight, a delayed connection, and a week that had already drained everything out of him, his mind struggled to catch up. This was his room. He was sure of it. Yet the sound inside told a different story. Daniel stood in the hallway of the downtown Seattle hotel. Lights dimmed for the night, carpet thick under his shoes. He checked the number on the door. Then he checked the number on his phone. They matched. His chest tightened, not with fear, but with disbelief. Maybe exhaustion was messing with him. Maybe the laughter wasn't real. He slid the key card again. Green light. Click, the door opened. And his life shifted without warning. Inside, the lamp near the window was on, casting a warm glow across the bed. 2 suitcases rested near the wall. And standing in the middle of the room were 2 people who were not him. A man and a woman turned at the same time, their faces registering shock that mirrored his own. For a moment, no one spoke. Daniel's first instinct was to apologize. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, already stepping back. Wrong room. But the woman looked past him at the door, then back at Daniel. Her expression was calm, thoughtful. "I don't think so," she said. "This is our room." The man beside her pulled out his phone, frowning. "We checked in hours ago." Daniel's heart beat harder. He glanced around again. The room felt lived in, but not messy. Neat, quiet, normal. Too normal for a mistake like this. "This can't be happening," Daniel muttered. The front desk sorted it out within minutes. A system error. Rare but possible. One room assigned twice. Apologies flowed freely, but the damage was done. Confusion had already turned into something heavier, something awkward. "There's only one option tonight," the manager explained. "We have a suite available. 2 bedrooms. Separate bathrooms. Complimentary upgrade." Daniel wanted to refuse. Sharing space with strangers was the last thing he needed. He had come to Seattle to escape, not to connect. But it was late. He was tired. And when he glanced at the woman again, something held him there. Her name was Emily Carter. She was traveling from Vancouver with her brother, Michael. Michael would be leaving early the next morning. Emily planned to stay another night. They agreed, quietly, politely. No drama, no raised voices. Just acceptance of a strange situation none of them had planned. The suite was larger than Daniel expected. With tall windows overlooking the city, rain streaked the glass, turning streetlights into blurred lines of gold. The air felt still, like the moment before something important happens. They stood there, unsure of what to say. Michael broke the silence with an easy smile. "Well, this is definitely a story." Emily smiled too, softer. Her eyes met Daniel's for a brief second, and he felt it a small shift, like a step taken without thinking. They settled in for the night with careful boundaries. Separate rooms. Polite distance. Daniel lay on the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the city outside. He told himself this was nothing. Just a mistake. Just a night. But sleep didn't come easily. He kept thinking about the way Emily had spoken at the door, steady, kind, unafraid. There was something in her voice that suggested she carried her own weight, her own quiet story. Morning came gently. Daniel woke early, the sky pale and gray. The rain had softened into mist. He stepped into the living area to make coffee, moving quietly, not wanting to disturb anyone. As the machine hummed, he felt a presence behind him. "Good morning," Emily said. She stood a few feet away wearing a simple sweater and jeans, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked rested but thoughtful, like someone who had been awake with her own thoughts. "Morning," Daniel replied. They shared coffee at the small table near the window. The city stretched below them, waking slowly. Cars moved like distant thoughts. People hurried somewhere important. Conversation came easily, surprising them both. Emily talked about Vancouver, about working in design, about how travel helped her feel like herself again. Daniel spoke about Chicago, about consulting work that paid well but felt empty lately. He didn't mention the breakup directly, but she seemed to understand anyway. There was no rush in their words, no need to impress. Just honesty, simple and clean. Michael joined them briefly, cheerful and relaxed. He teased Emily lightly, thanked Daniel for being cool about the situation, and soon left for his flight, his goodbye warm and genuine. When the door closed behind him, the suite felt quieter, more personal. Daniel and Emily spent the rest of the morning walking through the city. Pike Place buzzed with life. The smell of coffee and bread filled the air. They talked about favorite books, small regrets, and moments that changed them without asking permission. There was an ease between them that felt rare. No expectations, no pressure, just connection. By the time they returned to the hotel, checkout time loomed. In the lobby, they stood facing each other, the space between them suddenly heavy. "Well," Emily said, forcing a small smile, "I guess this is where the mistake ends." Daniel hesitated, then spoke honestly. "I don't think it was a mistake." She looked at him, really looked, and for a second the noise of the lobby faded away. "Neither do I." They exchanged numbers. No promises, no dramatic words. Just a quiet understanding that this night had mattered. As Emily walked away, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Not loud or overwhelming, just steady. He had arrived in Seattle, tired and broken, expecting nothing. He left the lobby knowing that sometimes the most important moments begin when a door opens to something unexpected, and this was only the beginning. The morning air was thick with mist and the faint smell of rain. But Daniel Harper couldn't stop thinking about the night before. The strange, unexpected encounter in his hotel room hadn't faded like he thought it would. It clung to him, persistent and quietly thrilling. He had expected confusion, maybe irritation, but instead, something about Emily's calm presence had unsettled him in a way he couldn't ignore. Her eyes had held a mix of curiosity and sadness, a story he wanted to understand. And now, as sunlight filtered through the blinds, he felt a pull toward her that was as sudden as it was undeniable. By the time Daniel finished his coffee in the kitchenette, Emily had already joined him, wrapped in a sweater that seemed almost like an invitation to conversation. "Morning," she said, her voice soft but certain. It was the kind of morning greeting that felt meaningful. It's the kind that makes the ordinary feel like the start of something important. Daniel smiled, keeping his voice even. "Morning," he replied. They moved to the small table near the window, both stealing glances at the rain-streaked city below. It was quiet, private, intimate, despite the strangers who had shared the suite just hours ago. No one else needed to be part of this. They talked first about small things: travel, the view from the hotel, the city's damp streets. Then, as the coffee brewed warmth into their hands, the conversation deepened naturally. Emily spoke about Vancouver, her work in design, and the slow, deliberate way she had come to Seattle to take a breath after a recent heartbreak. Her words weren't heavy, but they carried weight. Daniel didn't talk about his breakup directly, but she asked questions that made him reflect, and he found himself answering with honesty he hadn't expected to give anyone. For the first time in days, he felt like he could be himself. Not the man stressed by deadlines. Not the man shadowed by a failed relationship, just Daniel, quietly present and unguarded. Michael left for his flight early, shaking hands with Daniel, thanking him for being cooperative the night before. His departure left an unexpected silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Instead, it was full of possibility. Daniel and Emily found themselves in the suite together, the quiet buzzing of the city below providing a soft backdrop to their words. They spoke of favorite books, of memories that stayed hidden until the right person asks, and of small regrets that shaped who they were without defining them. Every laugh, every thoughtful pause made the room feel warmer, more intimate, though nothing inappropriate had occurred. It was a connection built quietly, emotionally, and honestly. After coffee, they decided to step outside. Rain had softened to a gentle mist, leaving streets slick with reflection, neon lights glinting on puddles. They walked side by side, slipping into the rhythm of easy conversation. Emily pointed out favorite cafes, charming bookstores, and the subtle beauty of wet city streets. Daniel responded with stories of his own favorite places in Chicago, memories of quiet streets and hidden coffee shops. With every step, their connection grew, delicate but undeniable. They didn't need to fill the silences. The comfortable quiet said enough. The city moved around them, but for those hours it felt like they had stepped into a world meant only for the two of them. By mid-morning, they found a small bakery tucked into a corner street. The smell of fresh bread and pastries filled the air, mixing with the faint scent of rain and pavement. They chose seats by the window, watching the city wake up while continuing to talk. The words flowed easily, and laughter came without effort. Daniel realized he hadn't felt this light, this open, in a long time. Emily's presence wasn't overwhelming. It was grounding. There was something in the way she listened, truly listened, that made him feel seen. He had expected awkwardness, tension, maybe even resentment, but none of that was here. Only a quiet, growing connection. Time passed quickly. The hours melted into a gentle afternoon, the kind where reality seemed suspended. Yet the clock reminded them both that the day would end, as all days do. They returned to the hotel to check out, carrying small pastries and paper bags, their hands brushing occasionally. Daniel felt a pang of reluctance. The reality of returning to separate lives was pressing in, but he also felt a strange sense of hope. Emily, too, seemed aware of the fleeting nature of their encounter, but neither rushed to fill the space with words that weren't necessary. In the lobby, they paused. The moment stretched, heavy with unspoken acknowledgement. "I guess this is where the mistake ends," Emily said, her voice gentle but tinged with a sadness that matched his own. Daniel looked at her, the words catching in his throat. He had come to Seattle expecting nothing and had found something he didn't know he was looking for, or where it begins. He said before thinking, surprising even himself. Emily's eyes met his, steady and knowing. She didn't laugh, didn't shy away. Instead, she nodded, a small smile touching her lips, full of unspoken promise. They exchanged numbers, an ordinary act that now felt monumental. No dramatic declarations, no sweeping gestures, just the quiet, careful acknowledgement that this night, this encounter, mattered more than either of them could have predicted. As Emily walked away toward the taxi stand, Daniel felt the weight of the moment settle around him. The city hummed, indifferent to the quiet story unfolding in the lobby, but he knew that something had shifted irrevocably. The randomness of life had opened a door, and he had stepped through it, back in his new room, alone this time. Daniel reflected on the strange and unexpected turn of events. The night before had begun with confusion, with the sudden intrusion of strangers. And yet it had ended with a clarity that surprised him. Emily had become more than a fleeting encounter. She was a reminder that life can bring connection when it's least expected, that hearts can touch in quiet, unassuming ways. He thought of her smile, the way her eyes seemed to look beyond the surface, and felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the weather or the coffee, but everything to do with human connection. The story of that night would linger, unspoken but alive. It wasn't about romance in the traditional sense, nor was it about passion or drama. It was about the delicate way two people can meet in an unexpected moment and leave a lasting impression, the kind that shapes thoughts, influences choices, and alters the rhythm of life. Daniel understood that some meetings are brief but meaningful. Some encounters are short but profound. And sometimes the smallest of mistakes, the wrong room. The unexpected presence scan opened doors to experiences that linger far longer than anyone anticipates. He checked his phone, imagining her message later that day, hoping it would arrive, hoping that the thread they had begun would continue. He thought of Vancouver, the city she would return to, the distance that might separate them, and yet he felt an unusual optimism. Life had a way of surprising people, he realized, and often those surprises brought exactly what the heart needed. The connection formed that morning wasn't bound by time or place. It was bound by the understanding they had shared, by the comfort of being seen. and by the rare thrill of meeting someone who matters unexpectedly, even as he packed to leave the hotel. Daniel carried that quiet energy with him. He knew that in the days to come, the memory of Emily, of the rain-soaked streets, of the gentle laughter in a hotel room that wasn't supposed to be shared, would stay with him. Not as regret, not as longing, but as possibility. It was a reminder that life doesn't always announce its gifts, that meaningful connections can appear when least expected, and that sometimes the simplest interactions carry the deepest weight. The suite was empty now, silent except for the faint hum of the heating system and the distant sound of city traffic. And yet, in that emptiness, Daniel felt a sense of fullness he hadn't experienced in years. He realized that the night, the morning, the chance meeting had changed him, not in a dramatic, life-altering way, but in a quieter, more enduring sense. It had opened him to the beauty of small, genuine connections, to the subtle way human hearts recognize one another, and to the idea that love, friendship, or meaningful connection doesn't always announce itself. It appears softly, gently, and leaves an impression that lasts. As Daniel walked toward the elevator, the city stretching out in misty light beyond the lobby windows, he felt a shift inside himself. The confusion of the night had become clarity. The unexpected had become memorable. And the strangers from room 1412 had left an indelible mark on his life. He didn't know if he would see Emily again soon or at all, but the night they shared had taught him to notice, to appreciate, and to recognize the quiet magic that life sometimes offers. And in that moment, Daniel Harper understood that some stories don't need dramatic endings to matter. They matter because they happen, because they touch the heart, and because they leave a space inside that's richer, warmer, and quietly alive with hope. The night that began with strangers in a hotel room had become a beginning, gentle, beautiful start that neither of them could have predicted, and yet both would carry forever.